Section 4.6, your author calls this section formulas. The correct term actually ought to be formulae. The plural of formula is formulae. There's your English lesson of the day. Although formulas is now actually an accepted term, doesn't mean I have to like it. Anyway, I'm sure you have seen many, many, many formulas in your life. I'm going to write down a few that I'm sure you've seen before. Here's one that almost everybody always knows. Area of a rectangle is length times width. Here's a very famous one. E equals mc squared. That's Einstein's famous formula. Energy is mass times the speed of light squared. Here's another famous one. Area equals 1/2 base height. That's the formula for area of a triangle. Oh, a couple more famous ones that you've probably seen. How about C equals 2 pi r, which is the same as pi d. That's the formula for circumference of a circle. Circumference is 2 pi times the radius, which can be written as pi times the diameter. Okay, so there are some famous formulae that I'm sure you've seen somewhere in your life before. What we're going to do in this section, we're going to do a couple things. We are going to evaluate some formulae. We are going to create some on our own. And then finally, we're going to solve. And you'll see what we mean by solve here in a minute. Okay, so let's say I give you a formula. I give you one of these formulas. Let's say I give you A equals 1/2 BH. And I might ask you to evaluate for B equals 10, H equals 6. All I'm really asking you to do there is plug the numbers in and figure out what's left. Pretty simple. A would be 1/2. Instead of B, we write 10. Instead of H, we write 6. 1/2 times 10 is 5. 5 times 6 is 30. Okay, so evaluate just means plug in the numbers that I give you and figure out whatever letter is left over. Here's one more, one that's maybe a little more complicated. S equals 2LW, 2WL, doesn't really matter, plus 2WH. And we're told to evaluate for S equals 52, W equals 2, and H equals 4. And this is actually problem number 13 on page 227. And it tells me this formula is the formula for surface area of a rectangular box. Okay, so what do? Well, all we do is we plug in the numbers given and we figure out what's left. So I have 52 equals 2 times W, which is 2, times L. L I don't know, so I leave it as L, plus 2 times W is 2, times H is 4. All right, so 52 is 4L plus 16. And I got to solve this equation. 52 minus 16, that's 36, equals 4L. Divide by 4, L is 9. Okay, so again, that's what we mean by evaluate. You plug the numbers in, you figure out what's left. That's pretty much all there is to it. All right, I'm going to stick on page 227 here and take a look at number 22. So it says, a photographer plans to use 55 inches of wood to make a rectangular frame. If the width is 12.5 inches, what is the length? Question mark. Well, what you need to recognize here, we're building a frame. It's rectangular, and we're using 55 inches. What does that 55 inches? That 55 inches is something we would call the perimeter. So I have a rectangle. This is going to be length, length, width, width. To find the perimeter of a rectangle, that means the distance all the way around. So this is a formula that I'm hoping you've seen before, one you should know. Perimeter is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. All right, so that's why I say sometimes we need to actually create the formula ourselves. So there's a formula we had to create. So perimeter, it tells me I'm going to use 55 inches to go all the way around this frame. So perimeter is 55 equals 2L, I don't know the length, plus 2 times 12.5. There's my width. So 55 equals 2L plus 2 times 12.5 is 25. Subtract the 25 on both sides. 30 equals 2L. So L is 15 inches. Okay, problem 34 on page 227 says, basketball tickets at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign ranged from $25 to $60 in 2009. Part A, find a formula of the total cost of K tickets that sold for $25 per ticket. So my answer for part A would be cost is, it would be $25 per number of tickets sold. So it would just be 25 times K. $25 for every ticket. If I sold 10 tickets, that would be 25 times 10. Part B, find the cost of N $60 tickets. It tells us to call this one E. I don't know why they picked E, but that's what it says in the book. Find a formula for the total cost E of N tickets. So that would be 60N. Every ticket I sell for $60 would be 60 times the number of tickets. Part C, find the total cost of all tickets. All right, well, the total cost of all tickets, T, would be the cost from the $25 tickets, that would be 25K, plus the cost from the $60 tickets, that would be 60N. Finally, part D, it says plug in these numbers. Plug in K equals 11,1200, T equals 490,000, and what does it mean? Okay, so D, I have 490,000 equals 25 times 11,200 plus 60N. All right, I need my calculator a little bit here. 490,000 equals 25 times 11200. My calculator says that's 280,000 plus 60N. Subtract 280,000 from both sides. 490,000 minus 280,000 is 210,000 equals 60N. So N is, divide by 60, 3,500. Well, what does that tell me? Well, the T, it was 490,000. That tells me if I had a total sales of $490,000 for the basketball tickets, and K was the number of $25 tickets. So my total sales was 490,000. I sold 11,200 $25 tickets. N equals 3,500. This is the number of $60 tickets. Okay, so that's what all that tells me. All right, the last thing we have in this section is solving formulas for a specific variable. So you're going to be given a formula, something like A equals 1/2 pH. There's a formula for area of a triangle, and the directions might be solve for H. So what that means to do, currently this formula is solved for A because it has A all by itself. What I want is I want this formula to be rewritten so that I have H all by itself. Maybe for some reason I know a bunch of A numbers and B numbers and all I ever want to compute is H, and it would be much more useful to have this formula written that way. All right, so here's what I would do. first off, I see an equation, and I see an equation that has a fraction. My personal opinion is get rid of the fraction. So I would multiply by the common denominator. So I would have 2a equals 2 times 1/2 bh. So 2a is bh. 2 times 1/2, those reduce. Now, I want to solve for h, so I want to get rid of this b. B and h are connected by multiply. To get rid of multiply, I do a divide. So my answer would be h equals 2a over b. All right, here's our last problem. Here's another nice formula. C equals 5/9 times f minus 32. This is a famous formula. This is a formula for converting between the Celsius temperature, which is C, and Fahrenheit temperature, which is F. Now, let's say you were somebody from Europe and you were coming to visit the United States, and you watch the Weather Channel. And the weather says it's going to be 80 degrees out. Of course, that 80 degrees is a Fahrenheit temperature. So that wouldn't be a big deal. You would plug 80 into this formula, and you would figure out your Celsius temperature, which is what you're used to. Now, let's say, however, you decided to go visit Europe, and you get up one morning and it tells you the low temperature is going to be 15 degrees and the high temperature is going to be 25 degrees. And you might wonder, well, what does that mean in Fahrenheit? Should I be wearing shorts or should I be wearing jeans? Do I need a sweatshirt or a coat or not? Well, for us, for somebody coming from the United States, it would be much more useful if this formula had F all by itself, because then I could just plug in the temperatures I see in the news and I'd be good to go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to solve for F. All right, so once again, here's what I would do. I see that this formula has a fraction in it. I like fractions, so the first thing I would do is I would multiply by the common denominator. That would be 9. So I would have 9c equals 9 times 5/9 times f minus 32. That's the same as 9c is 5 times f, said f, wrote 5, f minus 32. All right, the next thing I would probably do is I would get rid of the parentheses. I would use a distributive property. So 9c is 5f minus 160. Okay, now I'm trying to get the f all by itself, so I need to add the 160 to both sides. So 9c plus 160 equals 5f. And then finally, I need to get the f all by itself. I need to get rid of that multiply. To get rid of multiply, I do a divide. When I divide by 5, I have to do it everywhere. So I would have my answer, f equals 9/5 c plus 160 divided by 5 happens to be 32. So, for example, now, if I see the temperature is going to be 15 degrees, I plug in and I have f is 9/5 times 15 plus 32. My calculator tells me that's 59 degrees Fahrenheit. So my low temperature for the day was going to be 59. I guess that's okay. My high temperature, we were told, I said 25 degrees Celsius. So my Fahrenheit temperature I would plug in 9/5 times 25 plus 32. My high temperature is going to be 77 degrees. Okay, so I got a day between 59 and 77. Maybe I need a light coat or something. Depends on how you feel about the temperature. All right, but that gives you an idea of how to solve equations for a single variable. It's really nothing new. It's really the same as solving equations that we've done before. The difference is what confuses people is they see a bunch of letters instead of numbers. Don't let all the letters scare you. Solve equations the way we've always solved them.